Welcome to episode 1 of She Spins
He saves.
and We Thrive. I wonder if when they say opposites attract, they were talking about money.
I don't know, they were talking about us like polar opposites.
Yeah? So
Magnet.
how do you build a financial life when you are polar opposites?
It took us a while to do it.
Take us a while to find our footing. And I say that, and when we say a while, how long are we talking about?
Good 15 years.
Really? I would say, so clearly we don't agree on everything. When we started listening to Dave Ramsey,
Yeah, I agree.
and that was as
Why
she
was
has
that
children.
important? Why was that important?
What do you mean?
I mean, Dave Ramsey was saying a lot of the things that I had said in the past, but he said them in a way that resound with you, that made you listen, that made you feel comfortable and understand, unlike when I said things.
True. And so maybe that's key number 1 is find someone who you can and will listen to.
Or even a common vocabulary.
Right.
That, you have to both buy in, but the vocabulary has to be the same.
Sure.
Budget.
So let's go back to the beginning. Like, what shaped your beliefs about money, even before we got married?
It was definitely my dad. He was very private about money growing up. He didn't share a whole lot. And then as I got older, I think he realized that my financial education was probably lacking. So he started talking more and more. Hey, you need to save. Hey, you need to have a retirement. I may not be the best guy to follow, so I'm going to introduce you to a financial advisor that I use. If you like him, he goes, use him. He says, not. And one thing that always stuck out with me is find somebody that you trust to help you deal with your money.
Yeah. And I think that's wise advice. Again, it's kind of like we were saying, find someone who helps you get a common language. Find somebody who you can hear, that speaks your language, that communicates in a way that you're able to process it. I have very few money memories growing up. I remember some tension around money.
Usually around bill time.
Of course. Or, disagreements on how mom or dad wanted to spend, how mom wanted to spend money. My mom was also the spender in the family. I don't know that we can say that that's common, but maybe.
In our families it was.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I don't know that. Okay, so let's talk about, like, how did we function financially for the first couple of years until
I remember a lot of it, especially came around big ticket items in the sense that we were trying to live on a budget. I think we were being a little too strict at the time, but I distinctly remember we needed to pay the semi-annual car insurance. And I remember coming to you and say, hey, I need to write a check because the car insurance is due this week. And you're like, there's no money for car insurance. And I'm like, what do you mean there's no money for car insurance? We knew it was coming due. How do we not have the money for it? And clearly it was a lack of communication and the process of needing to set that money aside every month, even though we weren't going to spend it, we knew it had to be there to pay. But at that time, it wasn't there.
So I think that brings up 2 points. We have always, since we got married, linked everything. Right,
it's not his account, her account.
That's just the way we chose to do it. Also, when he says he came to me, I was doing the day-to-day. Writing the checks. We did checks back then, like the Flintstones. There was no debit cards. I was paying the bills, doing the grocery shopping, whatever. There was no online, whatever. So I was doing the bills. And so I do remember anytime he'd go grab the checkbook or whatever, I'd become tense and defensive and like, this is something that I manage. What are you doing here in my territory? And then looking for money that's not there. That's probably why I was tense. But I think it's fair to say I managed the day-to-day and he managed the big ticket.
But it was one of those that I still wanted to know where the money was going. So, that was one of the things I did every day. So just kind of either look at the checkbook or kind of look at seeing what was being spent, just so I had a general idea of where we were at. One, so we did start bouncing checks because, and still today, if you bounce a check, those of you that have know that it's not a fun process because you get cha-chinged every time.
Yeah. Did we ever bounce checks?
I think we did 1 month. 1 month. Wow. And we actually had the check overdraft protection.
Oh, yes.
And they
that.
covered us and we got a call, but it still cost us like $25 instead of what it probably should have cost us. That to me always made me panic. It's like, we can't go past zero. I got to know what's in there. So I was kind of big brother sometimes with overlooking.
I mean, we had two children by the time we started. We were living in a small farming community and I was driving a lot and somehow started listening to Dave Ramsey. And I came home with an urgent desire to understand. And so we sat down and we created a budget, like a top to bottom, everything budget.
So we knew exactly how much we needed to live on monthly. And that was the first time. And that included everything. That included what we were going to have to pay for tax prep, for all the
Everything.
different insurances, car, home.
Everything was factored in.
So we knew. And it was eye opening. It was like, we need to start setting more money aside.
And it made him aware, like, what do you mean the kids need shoes? Again, like their feet grew. Like those were things he wasn't aware of at the time. I distracted by the dogs. They might be okay. I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, so I know what was the most surprising thing to me in this whole process is how freeing I found a budget to be. Because to me, a budget meant I am absolutely clear on what I can spend and I don't have to, and we've included every situation that's going to come up. So I don't have to worry that I've overspent. We did a lot of cash envelopes and we had a lot. We did groceries, we did household, we did entertainment. We did all kinds of things functioning. And I loved it because I could watch it disappear. And I knew once it was gone, that was it until the next time. I found it to be very freeing. And that was quite the surprise.
You love the cash envelope so much that
we still use them.
For,
we use them for groceries. And
that's
household.
easier. Groceries and household.
Yeah. 20 years later, we're still using cash.
But people don't want cash nowadays. That's what drives me nuts.
Yeah, sometimes it's a problem. Okay, so if we could give you some practical steps, acknowledge your differences. Don't pretend like you don't know that you're the spender in the family.
Or the saver.
Yeah, acknowledge you are, and maybe even acknowledge what's great about the other person. For example, his saving has provided us opportunities that would have never happened and long-term savings. Kids' college, early retirement, all that thing. So I'm super grateful. Even though year one, we pretty much saved my entire income and I didn't love it at the time.
And what made me appreciate was that, Sally was juggling a lot of balls with the money and not having all the information or the input. And that once that happened, discussions became not tension, but just where are we at with this? And you talk about it like any other conversation and you were able to go on. Now, granted, the conversations didn't always go the way that, one person would hope or the other, but at least you had the numbers there to look at them and say, okay, well, then we need to make an adjustment because no budget's perfect. But with us both knowing that and both working in the same direction, rowing the boat the same direction, that made life so much easier. And actually gave us a lot to talk about on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. Another thing, probably the one thing that kept us focused when things would get hard. And it wasn't just like, we got it together and we stayed. It's normal life, right? Is that we would remember that we had the same goals. We wanted to save for the kids' college. We wanted to retire early. We wanted to live debt-free. And so when things would get really hard, we would talk about what our common goals were. So I would greatly encourage you to find what your common goals are and make sure you're working towards that together and that your choices are lining up with that.
Would say something that always, she said, we're on the same team. And I'm like, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
We're on the same team. Team Phillips forever.
Maybe, and this didn't come into play until a long time later, but having low stakes money conversations. I'm a huge fan of going to a local coffee shop because you're going to behave better when you're out in public, but to regularly check in. Let's talk about the money. How are we doing? Are we still aligned with the goals that we had hoped to be?
Just goals will change with time, and just the input of not just trying to stick it off to the side, talk about it once, and we dealt with it. We don't have to worry about doing it again. No, that's something that you need to continually do. It doesn't have to be every day or every week, but the continual money talks put you more and more aligned to where it gives you that freedom.
Yeah. And I think if you're having regular money talks and not just having them when there's something wrong, right, it becomes like, no, we can have money talks without there being tension in the room.
Exactly.
So it establishes that kind of baseline. And then find a system that works for both of you. I coached a client through some money issues. And one of the things she discovered was that the word budget just sent her in a tizzy. And so They called it a spending plan, right? It meant the same thing, but she needed to call it a spending plan to make it work for her.
So again, it goes back to vocabulary, right? That it's got to have
Absolutely.
something that means something to you. Like for me, I need to find a word for algebra because I still struggle with that to this day.
Yeah.
Thank God I don't have to use it on a daily basis. But I get a lot of attention when I hear the word algebra.
Absolutely. Okay, so if we're going to recap this episode, the goal is to celebrate your differences, but also to identify your common goals. If you don't have common goals, now's the time. Find you a neutral ground to talk, to have money, regular conversations, and try these. Try one thing. Let us know how you're doing. We'd love to hear from you in the comments, in our DMs. We'll link all the different ways you can find us, but we'd love to hear from you. Some of these things that you have tried or can try. Also, we want to know who's the spender and the saver in your family. I have seen it reversed, not often, but I'd be curious to know: Are y'all a unique couple? And then next time, come and join us because we're going to be talking about big money mistakes that we've made.
I know mine right off the bat.
Yeah,
but I'm going to save it.
So thanks for joining us.
Episode number 1's in the books. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks, Sal.
Same team.
Same team forever.